Hello one, hello all. It is Zilla, and tonight we are doing, or at least trying to do this stream tonight, because originally it was supposed to be G98 Defender and I who were going to be on for the stream originally, and that ended up not being the case because of a miscommunication on both of our parts, where I assumed he meant time based on my time zone and not his. So things like that happen, and essentially I just started this right after I got home, so I'm now sending him the link. I'm also going to send Atomic Spawn the link too if he is able to join. So let's get this party started. And I'm also probably just going to do the chat here in both Defender's chat and mine. It is the commentary of the bonus. Hello. And then there is the Brandine. Was good. Thank you for both you two gentlemen to come and grace me with your presence. So hopefully the stream goes better than how it originally went. Because at least now, Fender and I both on the same page in conjunction to what time we were referring to. And it should also be noted for anyone who is curious about going to the Fest of G, but they posted the hotel rooms for the Hyatt now, so that if you're interested in doing that, and if you're going back for G Fest next year, then definitely go take a look, see at what's going on there with them, because G-Fest is a wonderful time, and I already got my hotel already set up for that for next year. Oh, crap, time change is a bummer. Time change is definitely a bummer. I know definitely what I think for you bonus is, if I'm ever going to do like a D&D Godzilla stream or something to that effect, like Kaiju in the Forgotten Realms, I would definitely DM you specifically so that we could get that to work, because I think that'd be a very interesting conversation for a stream. But as we wait for Defender, hopefully not as bad as it was last time, just kind of throw some questions, stuff I haven't seen, just to help us pass the time and all of that goodness. And I think he just saw it, so we might not even have to worry about going through questions right away. It might just be a simple bring right on and go. But in other news, outside of the fact that I'm doing the stream tonight, Gigabash is coming out in 2 days, so that is going to be fun. I know I'm definitely going to be leaving my house early tomorrow to see if I can put down a pre-order for the game, because I obviously have a PS5, so I am going to be getting it from there. I'm going to make sure all my information between my computer as well as my other stuff is all together correct, so that I can stream from my PlayStation 5, which is going to be a different setup from this, but I'll still be able to put it directly onto my YouTube. So that will hopefully be something I can do. I'll be very happy if that is the case. But since the game does come out on the 5th, I will be able to have time tomorrow to get that all nice and set up. So, yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do. Definitely. Oh, I mean, I try to fish Ultimate Gaia and stay awake. Yes, I know I do tend to put people to sleep, and Gaia is a wonderful show. But it looks like our second guest has come on, so we will welcome on. G9 Defender, welcome.
Can you hear me?
You sound fine on my end.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm on my phone, so I might switch later to my laptop, but if this is okay, I'm good.
I would say overall the audio quality sounds better. Um, but like if you stutter and stuff, it might just be because of the fact that you're using Wi-Fi to connect. So if it becomes an issue, I'll just say switch over to the laptop. But right now, I can hear you just fine.
All right.
Let me move over to your thing right here. I'm just gonna share the screen because that's essentially what we'll do from there. There we go. So, obviously, since this was your topic, just start off all the guests. Some people were there for the last stream since we kind of did talk about it, but since you're here, I want you to give more insight as to what you mean in your post.
All right. So, okay, starting from the original post, um, you know, from what I gathered, it was referring to how with Zilla,
Mhm.
it's more so a new character made, and then they used the
Mhm.
Godzilla 98 design.
Mhm.
And I was saying how that was similar to how Singular Point
Yeah.
was making new characters or existing characters with design elements from previous kaiju. And like the
Mhm.
point was that Toho has the ability to use designs for new or pre-existing character designs.
Okay. So we can. I think we'll start off here. We'll have to move back to Zilla 98 because that's an interesting case to say the least. But when it comes to Variant, Titanosaurus, and Gorosaurus in response to Terrestrius, Aquatilis, and Terrestrius, um, I would say when you're looking at them, of course, they are using design elements, but they are not trying to emulate those characters because Amphibia doesn't act like Varan, and Titanosaurus also doesn't really act like Titanosaurus, and Terrestrius especially doesn't act like Gorosaurus, despite those characters having similar traits to their like the kaiju they're influenced from. So I would say in the cases of all the singular point kaiju, it's a matter of reference rather than one of direct lifting a design to then allow a character to exist within newer continuities.
Yeah, and I would argue that Zilla is like the highest degree to that extent of referencing,
Mm-hmm.
with the SP kaiju's being like lesser to where they're not like directly referencing it, but
Mm-hmm.
Zilla does directly reference 98.
Yeah, to the point where if you outside of things like size, which really would not affect the plot in any meaningful way, you can put Zilla in the 98 movie and there is no difference really. And that would not be the same for Amphibia, Aquatilis, or the Kamungas, especially, because you also brought those up too. Let
Yeah,
me
yeah.
move that over. There, and up that. We'll go back to the Salunga example in a little bit, but
Hmm.
we'll go to these ones first. Because I would also say that the other thing is that unlike with how the Zilla the trademark was created, um these characters were designed intentionality to be references rather than specifically taking the likeness of a pre-existing character that exists within your own rights to then create a something completely different. And then when I say completely different, I will say that's inaccurate. It would essentially just be a distinct but similar creation because we don't ever see something else like this ever appear again in another Toho property. And even with the SP monsters, we are, for example, the Kamungas, and I think the blue header monsters are called like Hitodas. They like we've never seen them come back, at least not yet, in a way where they're completely different monsters but still lifting their designs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say too, when it comes to the how the whole new trademark was created, if legally the only reason why something has a trademark, it is specifically to protect the likeness and intellectual idea of the character. If you are fundamentally then taking all those aspects and creating a whole new trademark by using something you already own, I think that inherently it is the exact same thing. And I think that that's just something that comes with the territory of having things be protected by copyright and trademark, where even if you own something, just to protect the likeness of it, you have to then do these kinds of things just so like people do not then try to copy you and therefore your own trademark gets compromised. Because I would say a good example of that is Kong, where we see technically the MonsterVerse Kong is not King Kong in the same sense as where the Toho incarnations are King Kong, because of the how the rights work and because of how specifically the rights were then shifted around. But we still consider it an incarnation of the same character, even though technically, from a legal sense, they aren't. And I would say, like, is there any value you think in distinguishing Kong from King Kong, even though inherently the intent of Kong Skull Island and GVK and the character is King Kong?
Well, I would say it would be like a case by case basis of like who's trying to argue that. Because I mean, well, you said that like in the technicalities, Kong is different from King Kong, and like I agree, and I for one have no problem with that, and I guess no one else has a problem. It's something that's uniquely to Zilla and Godzilla.
I think the reason why it's unique to 98 is because the idea of being a Godzilla and then not being a Godzilla is somehow a lessening of the character rather than a understanding that, hey, this character is unique in its own way and therefore should just remain in its own trademark and allow it to exist and continue to exist just on its own. Because like, even though people may understand on a technical aspect that Kong and King Kong are not the same character, implicitly they still consider them the same character. And depending on where you catch someone on a certain day, sometimes they'll be like, oh no, it is King Kong. But then when you run through the legal logic tree of it, they'll be able to admit, yeah, they're not the same. But implicitly they are. Because unlike with Zilla 98, to the fans of the character, there's no lessening of him being a Kong rather than a King Kong. They understand that it's the same character in everything but essentially name.
Yeah, but how much of that trademarking of the design with Zilla keeps it that way? Because like the trademark for the 98 creature still holds up.
Well, it's because that it's trademarked to Godzilla, and with the fact that they signed a deal with distribution, essentially the only reason why Toho would ever try to legally change that in any way is if there was any kind of financial benefit for them to then be like, hey, we're going to change the fact that the trademark was somehow violated, which in many aspects, from a artistic standpoint, yes, it was violated, but then from a legal aspect, what is the incentive that the company gives to then have a legal precedent like this? And then that also opens the door to any other kinds of legal precedents. And I feel that ultimately, because the other trademark character exists, the company does see no need to then legally enforce something of that nature. Because the same thing applies to Kong, where although in any legal sense, the rights holders to King Kong have no ability to go after Warner Brothers and Legendary, but they know for a fact that yes, the point of the character is to make a King Kong property.
Mm-hmm. And to an extent, that's like, I guess that's that spiritual aspect that you brought up before. Because like I would 100% agree that Zilla spiritually represents
I wouldn't even
98.
just say spiritually. I would say I would say less spiritual, definitely more literal in that sense above all else, because I would say both Kong and Zilla literally do this, whereas unlike say a Kiryu where it is just another incarnation that ends up under the sort of trademark of Mechagodzilla, and because there's no issue with the rights, and then the character didn't end up getting trademarked, and the character likeness was in some way separated. There is no issue with that. Same thing for Monster X and Kaiser Ghidorah, where we know they're separate from a regular King Ghidorah, but because there was no merging of those types of trademarks, there's never any need to do that.
Does the trademark of the design to Zilla keep the design ever being Godzilla again legally?
Not necessarily legally, because of course, if you're still publishing and you're still producing content that is in conjunction with that original film, you can't really break that because of all the distributing, all the licensing agreements between Toho and Sony. So, it's very much in a way where, because we know the likeness and character was used for a different trademark, it then ends up becoming a case by case basis where, yes, because the barrier, for example, like plagiarism or copyright infringement is just a similar name and a similar appearance, because Zilla and Godzilla 98 are owned by the same company. That's not something you have to worry about. And essentially, because they own both trademarks, they can essentially do with it what they will. But because the latter, in this case, Zilla, still exists, there is no real reason to enforce a complete overhaul of the original trademark and then risk any kind of legal fallout with a company like Sony.
Okay, but like, so you mentioned that, like, producing merchandise like the figures and such of the 98 incarnation. So like an example that I try to use is like the picture books.
Like the new picture books or like the old ones?
Like the old ones that I think came out around 1998. But the ones that like use the Heisei design.
Like the Who's Afraid of Godzilla?
Yeah, Who's Afraid of Godzilla? Like,
yeah.
Like, say someone today, purchased the license for Godzilla for a picture book. Could they use the 98 design outside of a 98 context?
I would say that actually, in most cases, is it possible? Yes. Would the company do it? Probably not. I would say that because when it comes to what designs you see in and out of comics now, we either see designs that are relevant to either current movies, which is why obviously the Monsterverse design is used in Monsterverse product, but when we see new content in the case of Half Century War or Rulers of Earth, essentially they are using designs that are similar to previous Toho designs that people have liked. So I would say, is it possible if a 98 fan got to work on a Godzilla comic and then they asked, could we use the 1998 Godzilla? Is it possible? Yes, maybe. Would Toho then say yes? Probably not, especially because we still have, like, the Legendary Godzilla is still making
Mm-hmm.
movies and content, so more than likely they would say, if you're going to use an American Godzilla, use the Legendary Godzilla, but if you want to use Godzilla 98, they'll probably just let them use Zilla as their own monster, because, like, I think we talked about this once when it came to, like, the Godzilla Rival comics. The Godzilla Rival comics don't necessarily use a specific design, but they all very much are influenced by a certain era of Godzilla. Like the the Godzilla versus Hedorah Rivals design is a very Showa inspired design. The Batch one's very Heisei inspired. So,
I'll have to see what those are because I honestly didn't know what you were referring to.
oh, you didn't? Okay. In that, yeah, in that case, I'll bring it up. Because I'm surprised you didn't know what I was referring to, because like the Rivals things were a super super big thing, especially because they were getting focused on different monsters. Because, like, for example, this was the Hedorah Rivals cover, and then the Godzilla you see here is very much like Showa 68 inspired, even though it's not exactly. There we go, it finally focused. Like, there are differences you can see with the actual Hedorah, like the 68 suit.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially they're using designs that are similar but different, and that's probably down to the fact that Toho wants to use specific designs. However, there we go. In this case, like, it's a more stylized look, but the design is overall Heisei inspired. So I would say that it comes down to primarily we would need a test case of someone specifically saying, I wanted to use Godzilla 98, and the publisher said no. Because, of course, they are using designs that are essentially riffs, or if not complete copies, because the Versus Gigan, like, cover art for the
Mm-hmm.
one shot lists Millennium Gigan and Final Wars Godzilla. Although, depending on the cover you get, the design will change for Godzilla, for example, where it looks like a mixture of Millennium and GMK, and then obviously the Gigan looks pretty standard. So it's more of a case where we don't necessarily know, but we would need a specific case for it to happen, and then because of that, we could then say without a shadow of a doubt, no, we don't want. They don't want to see that design as Godzilla in more, essentially canonical material.
Yeah, and something I've been trying to like figure out is if that's something that's more of a house rule or a regulation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to figure out if there's any like is there a fine line between like a house rule versus a regulation or something stipulated by the trademarks.
I would have to look at the big 98 legal agreement that I have, because it never, from what I've read, and that's also like a lot of legal jargon, but it never directly states the design can never be used outside of material not agreed upon between Sony and Toho, because clearly with the Deferreal 98 design, we see them have new material in conjunction to that film. We just never see it in more material, like one shots or as an ensemble in a game, and like we always see it in a historical context rather than a direct context.
Yeah, because the most things that I've seen is like something like the Matt Frank quote, where like he says, Toho says that any incarnation will just be Zilla.
Mm-hmm.
But like, is there anything within like that legal document or within Toho's trademarks that says that, or is it like a house rule?
Yeah, because then if we're talking about like house rules and then like contracts, then it comes down to, if it's a house rule, then you respect the spirit of the rule,
Mm-hmm.
even though there is the issue with legality is the fact that it's enshrined, but it's only so that there can then be precedent in other cases where it's dire, where house rules are specifically designed because there is an understanding between everyone not to do something. So um, it's essentially this is going to be for the audience as well as you as well. It's going to sound really weird. It's essentially like the idea between consequentialist ethics and deontological ethics, in the sense where if it's deontological, good actions are good because they're good, bad actions are bad because they're bad. And what I mean that is that a rule is given because it should be agreed upon, even if there's nothing really to bind it. While in a consequentialist, it's good ends. It's good ends for any means, or really, it just the ends justify the means. And in that case, it's because the law says so. Therefore, the law should be followed, regardless of whether the law constricts creative freedom or it doesn't make sense because of the ever-changing nature of art. And that's just sort of where art and not necessarily politics, but what sort of allows artists to have their creations be protected kind of clash. And
Yeah.
I think that's definitely something that should be changed. Because I think that therefore having broader overarching concepts and agreements for art is better, because then it just allows creations, regardless of their continuity changes, to in most ways and within good reason be protected. Whereas like if things were legally changed every couple of months, years, because something was retconned, things got changed, and then new trademarks had to be filed. Essentially, the bureaucracy of that would very much sort of envelop a lot of cases as well as projects. And especially with media that exists as long as Godzilla or any other property does, I think that there should be some middle ground. And in cases like this, it's definitely more down to interpretation rather than purely just legality.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think in a lot of ways, like especially with the whole Godzilla versus Kong thing, we saw that the reason why another one didn't get made was because of the whole rights issue. So, and the only reason why we got GVK is because technically Legendary Kong isn't King Kong. So that's what I feel, is that like I think as the better end is caring less about the legality of it and more about the intent behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like, I 100% like agree that Toho does see these things like Zilla and Godzilla as the same character, or that they represent the same thing. I agree.
Yeah, they are different but the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I can see it that way. How Toho has like these house rules,
Mm-hmm.
and then like you know I acknowledge and respect them, but it's just down to like the legalities of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that so long as it's something that a creator can like not so much fight against, but like persuade
Mm-hmm.
otherwise for a creation.
Yeah, no,
you
I
know
think definitely if creators are sincere enough about their intentions, that I think it's better for them to do that rather than them just being completely dictated by like copyrights and stuff. And then essentially, if you go hard in the trademark direction, then the company who owns that trademark is going to go back again hard on you in the trademark direction, especially if like they're more dependent on like house rules.
mm-hmm.
So like, I mean, I would say best case scenario is I would rather see a creator do a Zilla one shot that has love for 98 rather than them trying to like persuade Toho gives them a house rule, and essentially they try to really buck the system around that, and then that causes trouble for other artists down the line. because as much as I do like Toho for things, there are other times where I think they don't buck on things, and I believe that in some cases they do get burned, and then other times they do decisions that they rightfully kind of get what they deserved in those cases. And I think specifically with 98, because they created Zilla, it was a perfect way for people to still use the character without having to like do the effort of kind of pursuing any kind of like unprecedented legal changes that would have given them real no gain other than sort of saying like, oh, this is it now in the most ardent sense.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's just me. Or do you have like any thoughts that you would feel different about, or?
Well, I guess like from my perspective, I would agree with like I guess how you say like you'd rather see a Godzilla or Zilla one shot thing, made with that love.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I would. Well, I guess if we're gonna hypothetically, if I would approach Toho with a story, I would want to do a '98 story with
Mm-hmm.
that same, love and like that belief that I could do something better with the character as a Godzilla,
Mm-hmm.
and then like I guess show the potential that the Godzilla this incarnation can be.
Mm-hmm. I would also say too that then like I'm not saying you can't do it, but then that also always like any artistic endeavor where you're dealing with a larger company, that's always going to come with a risk. So say they say yes you can do it, but then they give you a whole bunch of other stipulations that then restrict like your freedom on it. So for example, because Godzilla 98 acts in a certain way, so power you don't get the atomic breath from like Godzilla series, you don't get other monsters, and obviously like you need to keep in sort of characters, so weak conventional weaponry, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, because of the fact that they're taking a risk with a less popular character, they then expect like you to at least reach sales numbers that are equivalent to another product that has a more popular Godzilla.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, well, in regards to those regulations, you mentioned that they would or might implement
Yeah,
for
no,
the
I'm
most.
not saying these are like hard and fast. I'm just saying hypothetically, because like
Yeah.
anytime you're dealing with a version of a property that's less loved, there's the company is always going to be more skeptical, especially because of the fact that you are essentially going to be on their dollar. And if
Mm-hmm.
they invested this money into you performing on a product, then you don't, that will reflect on the company for being like, why did you let them do that in the first
Yeah.
place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Like it's like, I think that of course artists should take risks too, but
Mm-hmm.
it then comes down to, if you love the product, is it better for you to play it safe in that case and make the Zilla product, or take the risk and then go for the G98 project? And if the 98 project falls through or it doesn't meet expectations and it makes it harder, are you willing to like own that specifically, or do you feel that because you were then saddled with expectations that were similar to another project, that like it isn't necessarily your fault?
Mm, I guess.
Like
Well, like
I'm not saying this to put you on the spot. I'm just saying, because you are passionate about it, it's just, if you were in that situation, how like would you proceed on that?
well, like if it didn't reach the expectations, how would I
Like
say?
for example, like hypothetically, let's say they do a Godzilla Rivals. They let you use Godzilla 98. They let you use C-Rex, but they don't let you use Godzilla as he's depicted in Godzilla series. They have to do it like Godzilla 98, and then they also expect you to reach a similar sales numbers to the other Godzilla Rivals comics. And then, for example, because a lot of people still don't like the 98 design, you fall short of that. And because you fall short, they don't blame like you specifically the story. They blame it on the marketability of the design.
Mm-hmm.
And then they therefore like they never negotiate that with another creator. Like, do you feel that that's on them for not letting you go as hard as you want on making a better story? Or do you feel it's a company just protecting its interests in the best possible way it can because it is still a company?
Right now, I would say it's hard to say because I can see it's a little bit of both, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like as a company, you want to protect, you know, the revenue, how much you invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also that creative side that I think like you shouldn't, you know, like keep artists from doing certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But I get there's like that whole protection of, you know, your property.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
would say there's a curving line between it, you know,
Mhm.
if you get that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that because I believe that I'm of the opinion that I think artists should always experiment, but I also believe that if you are working in someone else's universe, because of the fact that it is not yours, despite how much you may love it, the restrictions they put in place are specifically to protect the identity of that product. So therefore, being creative and finding ways to either be successful and improve within that space, I think is an overall better show of your skill as a writer or a creative in any way, rather than being assured that just because you go on a certain path that therefore you will succeed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because I think it's like a mixture of like the artist needs to shine, but then also whenever there is, I guess, studio, we can use the word studio meddling, it can help bolster creativity because then you're pushed into positions that you weren't and therefore come out with a good product nonetheless.
Yeah. But, you know, personally, I believe that, you know, even with those regulations, a good story can still be done.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would make a great story.
No, this isn't this isn't specifically a condemnation of your skill
Oh
or
yeah.
that of
Yeah, I
someone
know.
else's. It's just more like because I know how much I know that you are saying this in good faith. I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking you, like, would you be willing to take on those kinds of dangers if
I would.
you have to? That's commendable.
I would definitely take the risk. You know, if I thought I could, you know, pull it off,
Mhm.
I would definitely take the risks.
Yeah. Now, it's like this is an interesting one here by most contrary. There's an inherent risk that comes with artist and beloved IP. Alter too much and it gets shunned by the audience. Alter it just right and you have something fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I definitely agree with that because I think that sometimes like there are ideas that fit very well within a certain property, and even if it is pulled from another source, you just get that right blend and it fits oh so perfectly. Um, and then there's other times where you get ideas that may work well in other IPs, but they just like the elements just don't seem to mesh as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that a good example for me myself is that as much as I like the Monsterverse, I think some of like the ancient civilization Titan mythology does not work for me in just how they've constructed it, even though I think it's good. And a lot of it does not feel well thought out, or a lot of the aesthetic choices in Planet of the Monsters. I think a lot like that whole anime trilogy has some good like sci-fi elements to them, but just whenever I see them in this setting and this in a Godzilla story, it immediately turns me off, or I would rather see something different but similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Mm-hmm. And then, not to mention the other issues that outside of just not just out of the fact that you would have to be petitioning to get to use a not well appreciated Godzilla design that's also its own monster now as a Godzilla. You would then have to be competing with other artists who then would also probably not be trying to pitch stories with with a different Godzilla that a lot more people love.
Yeah.
I would say in general, like, do you think that there should be like stronger or just more transparent like understanding of the legality of certain things, especially when it's in conjunction with our IPs? Or do you think that kind of how it is fine, but it makes you just sort of it gives you hope in a sense where you can wish for something and maybe it will happen?
I would say it's kind of a toughie because, like, something you mentioned is just like, like the biases between something.
Mm-hmm.
I would say yes in terms of the things I'm biased about, but like there's also that, like I would want to know the rules just so that I can have that closure of like, whether or not I can break them or bend them, or if there's something that's like a tough, regulation, like something with like the, like the monster is, how they say, oh, Godzilla can't emote, but
Yeah.
Godzilla clearly does.
It has emoted in the past. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've got one for you. This is just another hypothetical. So, like, that the Monster X had gotten revealed. I think it was last year, or it might have been the start of this year, or before G Fest. It's been a while since it got revealed because obviously the Gigan one has been like the Gigan anniversary has been like the big main thing. But because we now have a Final Wars Godzilla, a Monster X, and a Gigan all in the SH Monster Arts line, would you rather see a 98 Monster Arts or a Zilla Monster Arts, where you essentially, because obviously there's going to be less interest in a 98 Monster Arts, despite like the Bluefin thing. There was a lot of times where I kept on seeing the same people retweeting it again and again. But like, if they did one, probably be a more limited run because they're expecting less people to buy it. Would you rather see a more widespread Zilla SH Monster Arts release because it's in junction with the Final Wars monster line, essentially, because we now have it would be the fourth monster released out of that movie? Or would you rather see a limited run of 98?
I would say this is something that I think, well, that is often discussed, but it would have to depend on whether they faithfully do the 98 design or the Final Wars design.
Essentially, because, like, let's just say because the CG used for Zilla was not up to snuff compared to the 98 movie, which had much more money behind it. They call it Zilla, but when you look at it, it is much closer to 98, but it is called Zilla.
I'd say perhaps, yeah, I would be happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
I would still be, more than excited and appreciative if they went with the full, 98 Incarnation SH Monster Arts. Yeah, because when it comes to like, do we know like how well like the 98 figures sell? Like the
The
recent,
Defla reels.
yeah, like the
I
recent.
have no clue about sales numbers, but like, this is completely anecdotal. Anytime I go to like a local comic store, and this is going to be specifically limited to the shops I've seen on the East Coast, and from that I mean up through Maine, down towards like the southern states of that entire block. Anytime I see SH Monstars figures, I obviously just see the regular ones, and then anytime I see X Plus, I see whatever's new. But then whenever I see the Defla reels, I oftentimes just see Gamera's, like the Gamera 3 one, a lot of the 2000s. One time I saw a 55. I never see really any of the other Defla reel monsters outside of Godzilla and some of the Showa ones. I have not seen, for example, I've never seen an Ultima one before in just the wild. Obviously, I saw some at G Fest, so specific monster vendors will have them. Like they'll have the 98 figure, but when it comes to like at a regular store, if you were out and people were asking, I would never really see I've never seen a 98 Defo reel before, and I've asked before. In most cases, most vendors I've talked to say they never carried them before. But that's like all. Then I should also coattail that and say that they also don't. They never carry every single SH Monstars figure, but like they always try to carry a stock that people will actually buy, which in most cases they do. Unless they're like some of the more exorbitant price figures, like the things that will reach like $300 and stuff, where that may take a little bit more time, but it'll still sell. But even then, I never really see 98 stuff unless it is stuff that has been brought in and like resold to a vendor that will pay for things you want to sell them.
Okay.
Because, like for example, the Stomp and Roar one that I still need to send to you. That one, I'd asked he's like, that's like one of the local stores that's by my house. I asked him where if he got that shipped into him, and he said that some guy like in the town that he worked, that the store is in, just came in with it and like a bunch of like Godzilla comics, which were all the Kingdom of Monsters comics, and he just he gave them off to the guy. And then the other 98 figure that I had gotten, that I also need to still send to you, that one I ended up getting at an antique store. And that's like the same thing as where like whenever I see like most 98 products, they're almost always in antique stores. And then even any of the new products I never usually see like in comic stores being sold.
I guess that's sort of the same for me too. I always see some like the old vintage stuff from the 1998 release.
Yeah, because I mean, like obviously that was all stuff made in America, so there's going to be people who either are selling it on eBay or they just gave it up to like a local comic store or whatnot.
Yeah.
That's why you always see sometimes like Imperial Godzillas end up in comic stores, and it's because some dude who lived in the area knew there was a comic store there and just ended up trading it in for something or selling it.
All right, cool. Yeah, I see the same thing in like some of the like comic shops in the malls or even like a Barnes and Noble. I also know this collectible show where if you go to the right vendors, they'll have like, different things. I wouldn't say it's more so the higher end popular things. I don't really know about the figure world in terms of popularity, but
yeah, I'm not like super versed in like figure collecting, just like enough to somewhat be informed on the topic.
Yeah.
But and then of course like what I can see and what other people tell me, because like obviously when you're the one guy out of your friend group who likes Godzilla, they like people, whether it's friends or people like you see on a daily basis, will tend to tell you like what's in the area. But I would say another question I had is, do you think like the continued sort of allusions to monsters being influenced by other monsters is like a sign to you that like the barriers between like rights and trademarks are breaking down, or do you just feel like it's just really more references and nothing more?
I definitely say I would like to know the answers to that question myself, because from what I see, because Toho owns like the rights to the design, they can use it how they see fit. Because when I saw the SP designs, like immediately I thought back to Zilla because like they reused the design because they had the rights to it and they applied it legally to a new monster. Because that's what I always wanted to find out, like what exactly happened to create Zilla, like if it was like a new monster and they just slapped on the 98 design, and then how different or how similar are they to the new um SP monsters, or like is it far enough to where it's just a reference versus close enough to where it's a one for one representation of the creature.
Yeah, because like I would say like definitely in the case of um like the SP monsters, we'll just use the Godzilla forms for example, because obviously Godzilla. Like I don't think anyone could really say, even though we were thinking about it for a while, given the context of the film and for 98 and then the show for Singular Point, that someone could say, well, it's Titanosaurus, or oh, it is actually like it is literally Varen in every way, shape, and form, or it's Gorosaurus in every which way you like look at it. Whereas with 98, there's a lot like it's a lot more dubious, and the same would then go for Kong in that aspect too.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe one thing would be like it would be interesting if, for example, if Toho like for some reason, like if the MonsterVerse decided to stop and somehow they were able to then get the rights to Kong as its own character separate from King Kong and that exists alongside Godzilla products without like any input from Legendary, that would be probably a better show where we could say, oh, without a doubt, it's like it's the same issue with 98 where they're essentially having to create a new trademark for a monster that they don't necessarily like own full scale, where in the sense whereas essentially in this case Toho would be hypothetically buying the rights from another company, where in 98's case it's a co-ownership with rights reverted back to them with extra stipulations put back on for Sony when it came to future releases of like the film.
Yeah, because that's something that boggles my mind. Because like something that goes around is I guess when it comes to like the character, because like the Sony licensed Godzilla, which Toho owns. They made the design, which would revert to Toho after their license expires.
Yeah.
So, in any case,
because it was essentially a one-way deal where Toho said they could make a Godzilla design, but it would still fall under the rights of that character. And then once those rights reverted back to Toho and they no longer had the right to produce new content with the Godzilla character, they were then like, oh, we have the likeness of that character of this new Godzilla. Why don't we just have it be its own monster now, especially with how people were felt about the film.
But hypothetically, if they never did Zilla, what would the situation be?
I would say it'd be probably if that was a thing. To be honest, I think it'd be even more dire because we don't have a monster that has that design, so we can't say, oh, it can't appear alongside another Godzilla. We already have Godzilla. And of course, we do have instances where, like in the Godzilla game, we have Legendary and Heisei Godzilla. But in that case, they would probably just use a more popular Godzilla design. Like the only Showa rep we got in the PS4 game was the 64 Godzilla, which is a very popular show of Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it's a Godzilla design. It would probably get about as much content as it is now, with like maybe a cup like a duffel reel here and there because of like how different it looks. But I don't think we would ever, like, for some reason in this timeline where a Zilla doesn't exist, that we would then see a like a comic where the main Godzilla is based on the 98 Godzilla. Especially because like we would then have to know like was there a change in like how the rates were done. But if it was exactly the same, I think the situation would be exactly the same, except we'd probably never see the design again outside of a couple toys here and there. And probably if, like, for example, they weren't like, if they never did make Zilla for Final Wars, we'd probably never see like a resurgence in people like knowing about the design, because then people would always think, oh, the it was that 198 movie, the show was okay, but like the movie is like the thing that everyone knows about because not everyone watched the show. And then because like Zilla was like never got like any kind of attention in like the IDW comics, then that also means we don't see it like there at all either.
Okay, but would the the deal in perpetuity with Sony and Toho, would that get in the way of or like, you know, same thing like with the picture books, like say if someone wants to make a picture book and they want to use 64,
Mm-hmm.
and like, you know, that's our Godzilla and that's a design.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing stopping that, right?
I think definitely with a lot of cases, it always comes down to like what is popular at the time. So, for example, with the Who's Afraid of Godzilla books and like the Godzilla chapter books, the Heisei Godzilla was still the main Godzilla at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see with the Bandai Creations material that the Godzilla at the time was the 2000 Godzilla. So even though we never got like a Godzilla 2000 toy back then, we at least got the first Godzilla for 54. We got Burning Godzilla, which was still very new at the time. And then we got like Gigan, because everyone knew Gigan from both his movie and Megalon's movie. And then we had Rainbow Mothra, which was also still fairly new at the time, even though Rebirth of Mothra hadn't come out then. And then later on, we would still get we would get the Heisei Mechagodzilla, which was still new at the time. Then we got both GMK, Ghidorah, and Godzilla, and Space Godzilla. All these were still new products at the time. So at this point, because 98 is like over 2 decades old, and it's still fairly divisive among people as a Godzilla design, even if Zilla was never made, I would say that it's still not likely that we would see a whole lot of people trying to get a like a picture book with Godzilla 98, and especially now with the MonsterVerse, because people now have a new image of what an American Godzilla is, and we see one that is far more faithful in appearance. That like if someone says like, hey, I want to use the American Godzilla, Toho would still probably be like, you have an American Godzilla that we like, and it's the legendary one. I would say, especially now, the legendary has the rights to Godzilla, and America, like 98 is definitely not in the cards, really.
Yeah. Well, no, I honestly, it's just for me, it just goes back to the like the house rules versus the regulations. Like even though I understand it a little bit more, like when it comes to like if Zilla didn't exist, and then I'm not so sure about like say Legendary hasn't been done yet.
Yeah. Okay. So, are we talking? Are we saying Legendary has been done like right now as we're talking hypothetically, or like this is between like Legendary and Final Wars? So Final Wars has already ended. It's like the early two. It's like the mid 2000s.
Well, let's say let's say Zilla wasn't in Final Wars and it wasn't created. It's before Legendary. Well, it's either before Legendary or Legendary doesn't exist. in this hypothetical.
Or let's say Legendary says no rather than Legendary doesn't exist, because like obviously that would change a lot more. Let's just say Legendary says no to this idea.
Well, it says no to the idea of making a Godzilla movie, or no to the idea of 98 design in the movie?
No to the idea of a Godzilla movie. So like there is no like deal with Legendary where there's no musings like, oh, another company's making a Godzilla movie after, not like in America after Godzilla 98.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well,
so I would say Zilla isn't made. We don't see Legendary says no. At this point, if it's a matter where Legendary says no, they might shop it around to a different studio. That is always possible. And can like there's always a lot of people in Hollywood that are interested in making a Godzilla movie. So I would say like at that point, because they at this point, since we know that they're looking, then they may like any new products that have Godzilla, they may not do another US Godzilla because they know they're trying to get one right now. But if let's just say no one is interested in doing any Godzilla stuff in America and Toho specifically just like, okay, we're not doing Hollywood stuff right now, I would guess that then it'd be a lot more possible in that case, where we could see like maybe one figure, maybe a one shot possible, like essentially like the doujinshis where we see like those really just out there concepts with a character, or as part like of an anthology where someone just decides, hey, I really like the 98 Godzilla, I really want to use that design. It may appear in something like that, but like as a standalone sort of the big pusher to a product, it may not happen. But if Toho just says yes, you could use 98 Godzilla how he is in Godzilla series, so atomic breath, monster fighting, then yes, I would probably say that would be the most likely for that to happen.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, I guess it sort of be like, I guess like the comic Godzilla in Hell, like if, for example, like one of the stories had the 98 design.
Yeah,
Like,
I would say that's possible. Although honestly, if it appeared like so with Godzilla in Hell, we do see Godzilla appear pretty different across the comics, and although he resembles like the 2000 the GMK, they aren't exactly like one for one versions of the characters. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone appeared and made like a 98 version in the comic that I would probably wouldn't be surprised if I saw a more beefed up kind of take on the design.
Okay, that's
but again, like for me, I just think that if someone was like, oh, we're gonna make 98 more like a regular Godzilla, and sort of like not just act, but also just sort of in shots be more traditional Godzilla-y, that you then remove aspects of the design that a lot of people who like the design do like. And I don't think that's what people would want, especially those fans, because I don't think that like you would want a 98 design that then tries to essentially bridge that gap and then loses everything that you like about it being Godzilla 98.
Yeah.
Because then at that point, it's like, it's not fair to you because you want the 98 Godzilla, and it's not something most people are going to be super into because they just want a real, or in this case, they want a more like traditional Godzilla.
Yeah. And then something I wanted to ask you about is like, what is the deal with the rights to the animated Godzilla?
So this is something that was interesting when it came to what Matt Frank said. And specifically, I think this may just come down to a big loophole in the sense where, because what Godzilla 98 had, or specifically the Godzilla Jr., whatever you want to call it, the second generation Godzilla had in that series, was part of the animated like universe, and because it was part of a condition where if a second film wasn't made, then an animated series could be made. That
Mhm.
therefore technically they can be considered distinct enough to each other where they could be separate entities in likeness but not in name, to the point where you could say, oh, we can still keep producing, like we can still re-release Godzilla the series, but it's not like we can't make new Godzilla the series contents. But then Toho doesn't necessarily have doesn't necessarily have the rights to use the character likeness of the 98 Godzilla with that power set, because technically it is now legally distinct enough to then be a completely different character. Because I think that's one thing. If there's one thing I want to express distinctly to the audience members here, it is the fact that anytime like laws or copyright infringement ever gets discussed in a court, it's always going to come down to the arguments and not just, well, the law says this and therefore the outcome is that. It is very much more back and forth. If you watch any legal case or if you look at legal precedents, you understand that yes, technically in both ways, a lot of times both the defense and the prosecution are correct. It then comes down to what is a more correct interpretation of the law, rather than one person is completely lying, because at that point, like, if you are not even really practicing law at that point, there's a lot of like things that can happen to you, especially as a lawyer.
Mhm.
And I know, obviously, I saw you had your mic meeting. I'm not sure if you got all that.
Yeah,
Correct?
I got most of that. You know, just a
Gotcha.
little something, but okay. But like, is there like actually like a separate, I guess, trademark on it, or?
From what I've read on this legal case, it doesn't appear to be, and this might come down to house rules rather than just like actually be like, you don't have the rights, we could sue you if need be. It's probably more like, technically we don't, but we don't really want to fight over it.
Mm. Okay.
I agree with whoever just said that.
Who said what?
I heard someone scream, and I agree with whoever that was.
Yeah, that's just my little brother.
That is completely fine. I agree with him on what he just said.
All right. And then and so like with all of that, like it'd be a problem for like any new project. Like say if we even got like a Godzilla 98 or just a Godzilla that utilized the design again.
Mm-hmm,
Like
exactly.
the whole issues of like what abilities he can have.
It would be very much like, especially if you're like, I want to make a new Godzilla project. Yes, you can. I want to use the 98 design, but that's in the Zilla trademark. Why would you want to do that? And then essentially, like, if you say like, I really want to use this as the Godzilla design, I can use that technically, right? They probably would either say just, no, this is our rules, we're going to find someone else if you won't, or technically you can, but then these are all the stipulations.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I see that, yeah.
But any other questiones did you have it all, or
well,
satisfied overall?
One thing I wanted to talk about was the similarities and differences between the Godzilla Zilla situation and the Captain Marvel Shazam situation.
Okay, so specifically when it comes to that, the reason why the character had to get its name legally changed is because I was about to say Toho. Marvel Comics had a copyright on the name. So in this case, both companies had, like, they owned rights to the name, but essentially, in most cases, when it comes to copyright infringement with characters, it usually comes down to a similar name and a similar appearance.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest, most well-known example was, I think it was Rob Liefeld, that might be someone else, but it was with the character of Fighting American. after this one creative left Marvel, he created his comic called Fighting American. And actually, no, it was Joe Simon, not it was not well, Joe Simon was the original creator. So, but Fighting American was like an original character who was in, like, the character was created back in 1989 and launched in 54, but it was like the character was so entwined with the original Captain America, but technically it was legally distinct, even though it was essentially a Captain America in name only. And then when the character was rebooted, the character then was picked up by an old Marvel alumni who left on bad terms, and then because of that, there was a whole issue there. Like, the character even had, like, again, I'm actually going to bring up an example of what this character looks like. American. Yeah. So, like, we do see the character in, we've seen him alongside Captain America, but there we go. I got the biggest examples is that right here on the left is Fighting American, and then on the right here is Captain America. And here's another shot here. Again, there's like, it borders on it, and this character, like, one of the later creators who worked on it, ended up getting sued by Marvel, and it was resolved, but like a lot of things creatively had to be done as to ensure that he like wasn't further sued and like faced any further consequences from that. But like, it is cases like that where essentially you have to like wonder where the line is drawn, and in this case specifically, a similar name and a similar appearance was enough for there to be a court case about it, and for the creative behind Fighting American to lose. And in the case of Captain Marvel and Shazam, because it was Wiz who originally owned Captain Marvel, and because Marvel won in court, they had to change the character's name to Shazam, which was really originally just the word that Billy Batson used to transform, and then that became the character's name rather than it being Captain Marvel.
Okay, well, when it comes to that, when did his name get officially changed? Because from what I researched, it was
essentially like he was more directly called that in New 52 directly, but he was never called Captain Marvel again or advertised as the Captain Marvel after that litigation, because he would always be referred to as Shazam, the original Captain Marvel. And then he would just, and from what I've seen, he wasn't called Captain Marvel. So that is what I've seen from it. So like, at that point, the character, if like legally you can't really be called Captain Marvel, but you're not being called your new name, and at that point legally the character wasn't registered under as Shazam until like it became part of the comic itself. So it's again, that is the tricky thing with law, especially when it comes to character changes and the like.
Yeah. Oh, because like, so for this, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I saw, the situation with Captain Marvel and Shazam is like same character, different name, versus Godzilla 98 and Zilla, where it's different characters, same design.
It's essentially, well, the thing is that it's same character, different name, and in the case of Shazam Captain Marvel, the character was sued because another company essentially tried to claim that they owned the rights to this character's name. And then, although technically DC very much in all senses of the word, like that sounded weird, all senses of like the word as well as the law, actually did own the rights to that name, because Marvel won in court, not because like their arguments were that much greater, it's just because of them being somewhat more convincing. That is why they had to change the character's name, even though technically like they purchased the trademark properly from like Wiz after Wiz went under. Whereas in the case of 98 and Zilla, where they own the likeness of the character, it is owned under their greater trademark. Let us just take this design, move it into another trademark so it can then exist alongside our trademark in a more recognizable fashion.
Okay.
Because there wouldn't be if Toho didn't create Zilla, if Zilla wasn't created, Toho probably it's because Toho wouldn't have seen the 98 design as completely different to like the character or the likeness of their original creation. And because of how different it was, having it appear as its own monster would allow them to continue to use it rather than just letting it sit as that one odd property that they did once, especially because it was a joint effort with Toho in America and the big first like Hollywood Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think, for example, if we saw the John DeMont design, I don't think we would have had the same kind of issue where they would have had to worry about like, oh, we might need to change this because look how different it looks to our own character. It would probably just exist alongside Godzilla where we see Legendary Godzilla is at now.
Okay. But aside from design, for example, like if John DeBont was made and it was a Godzilla, and then we also have Legendary, what would be, I guess, the differences between that and like 98's case in terms of like owning it in perpetuity?
I would say, well, so because I would say pretty much nothing changes because the original agreement between Toho and Sony happened on February 26th of 1993. So at this point, if the DeMont film was made, everything that is in the 98 legal document for the option, like the purchase agreement, wouldn't change. So hypothetically, let's just say they don't like the DeMont design. Could they move it into its own character? Yes, because it is far closer to the design than 98. Probably not, especially because at that point we do know that Toho was much more hands-on with making sure the design looked how they wanted it to look, versus with 98, where at this point it had been in development hell for so much longer that they were just like, well, at this point, let's just get it out. Hopefully, the story's good because at that point, they'd only seen the design, not the story or anything of the sort.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and I'd also say, probably most likely the DeBont design probably would have been just as forgotten. We probably wouldn't have seen it in Final Wars, however. So in that aspect, because the DeBont design is more similar to the normal Godzilla design, there probably would have been another monster that took Zilla's place in Final Wars, but we probably would have gotten the same amount of merch that we had gotten for 98 versus the DeBont film, but also because if we got a more traditional Godzilla and the fans were happy with that, it's very likely that they probably would have gotten better sales on their original toys, which also probably means they would have been more apt to say greenlight a sequel, etc. So it very much comes down to like these disparate factors that add up to just the design never really enduring in that aspect.
Oh. Okay.
But overall, any other questions that you might have, or overall, is that about what you'd expect?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I'm pretty all right with it. I guess depending on with the case, because well, would we still say that
Excuse me.
That's all right. So we've
Excuse
talked
one moment,
before.
real quick.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
just mute myself. Okay, I'm good.
All right. You all right?
Yep.
All right. So is there an agreement that at the very least the 98 incarnation is still distinct as it's Godzilla versus the new creation Zilla?
I would say in this sense it is not as distinct because we understand that the design and likeness transfer over. And although we know that the 04 design isn't as accurate, the IDW version is.
Yeah.
So at this point, the likeness and the design, which is what the copyright and the trademark protect, then at that point it's very much a matter of what do you call it, and it's more left up to fans rather than like a legal enforcement.
Mm. So
And I
so
would
would
say
that?
also like when we see 98 content also, because Toho has a purchasing price on all of its monsters, it's a very um good and profitable way for the design existing within these trademarks, because since it is both part of the Godzilla and that Zilla trademark, they can say, "Oh, you want to use this design? Well, you're gonna have to purchase it under the Godzilla trademark." And if someone hypothetically asks why, they can say, "Well, because it is Godzilla, they're more likely to buy it rather than another monster." And then Toho gets more money by licensing out that trademark. They also probably, if they've already licensed out the Godzilla trademark, someone wants to use the Zilla design, they probably are less likely to then say, "Oh, you want to use that design? Well, you're going to have to pay more money to use that design," especially when the design is linked between those two trademarks.
All right. Well, when it comes to the trademark of the design, is it more protected under the Zilla name, or is it like just as equal as under the Godzilla name?
It's just as equal. So, like, if someone says Zilla 98 and if someone says Godzilla 98, legally there is nothing inherently wrong with calling it one or the other because the character and likeness exists within those two trademarks.
All right. I can understand that a little more now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Because again, yeah. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
This freaking 90 is meant to be an incarnation of Godzilla. Legally speaking, while the final version is meant to be super character streamer Godzilla is alongside Godzilla. Again, you're technically right, Andreas, but because like, the thing is that like legally you could make the argument that because the intent behind the original trademark was to use the character and likeness, which is what the new incarnation falls under, it is therefore accurate to then say it is Zilla in
Mm.
that case. Whereas if someone were to say, for example, is Final Wars Zilla Godzilla 98 2 or Godzilla 98 3, I would say no.
Wait. Well, something that I talked to someone else about was if they're as equal, can someone just say IDW or O4 are Godzillas as well, or
I
how
would
much?
say no, because in that case, because you are then enforcing a new trademark into the equation rather than letting the Godzilla trademark kind of be as is, then you can they'd be less likely for you to say IDW Godzilla 98, because then at this point the reason you are specifically bringing up is because that is like it is the 98 incarnation of the character, which if we're going by the continuity argument, then it's definitely not the same character, which a lot of people have brought up, which is why it's accurate to call it Zilla, especially because when a new trademark is then implemented, it would then be less likely. But because the design exists between the two trademarks, the newer trademark would technically apply to the older trademark, but then without a doubt not apply, because there's less likely to say, oh, well, IDW Zilla is just Godzilla 98 because the new trademark exists, because then it calls into question the validity of that new trademark.
Hmm. Hmm.
This is interesting to you, but if anyone's going to make the argument, if anyone wants to use the version of Godzilla, then most likely they're going to have to get the rights to use Zilla and not the 98 version. That is true to a degree, but because the rights to the character likeness fall under both trademarks, technically because of the Sony agreement, where that design is sort of held in perpetuity as a Godzilla, but then they also, because of the rights reversion, are allowed to use it as its own design. It is therefore a legal loophole, which is one of the most interesting things about law, is that we try to make it foolproof, but then there's these so many loopholes where, in the most technical sense, yes, you are right, but also there are so many rules for error, and if you were to push them, you would then have that be argued out on a court of law, and then whatever the court agrees on, that becomes a legal precedent for other instances like this. Because if there's one thing I've looked at when it comes to people who study law or people who talk about the law, it's that lots of cases are then agreed upon, and they are decided based on the precedent of similar cases.
Okay. I'm gonna step away for just a second. I'll be back.
That is no problem. In the meantime, while Defender is AFK, anyone got any questions just to fill the dead air? I agree on this, most likely considering Toho had a very tough policies when it comes to terms with Godzilla. Yeah, no, like, again, when you're dealing with cases like this, especially when you're licensing out characters and then these new incarnations get so flatly rejected, and especially even more when you're dealing with things that have multiple incarnations, you then run into this problem where you have to be like, well, there are people who do like this. Do we want to ever use this incarnation again? And in most cases, people, like, the company's going to be like, no, we don't really want to. And if a lot of the creatives in the company don't really like it, we saw that with 98, a lot of people are also going to say no. And then because there are legal loopholes like this, there is enough wiggle room where someone could say yes, someone could say no. Has Toho ever revisited an old incarnation of Godzilla aside from 54? In a new context of, like, for example, a film, no. If you're talking about video games, yes, because technically, if we want to say these are the same character, Godzilla, the Heisei Godzilla or Godzilla 90s was featured in, obviously, the Pipeworks games as a separate Godzilla alongside 2000, which was the premier Godzilla at the time. And even when Final Wars was coming out in Save the Earth, they still used the 2000 Godzilla and the Heisei Godzilla instead of the newer Godzilla. So we have seen cases like this. And then in the PS4 Godzilla game, we ended up seeing Showa Godzilla 64 appear in that game as the only Showa Godzilla. Probably like one of the only times in like a newer game we did see a Showa Godzilla for some time. And then we did see the Godzilla Kaiju Collection have a bunch of Godzillas all the way from 54. But in terms of, for example, the comics, we did see we saw the GMK Godzilla appear in Godzilla in Hell. The 2000 design appeared in Godzilla in Hell. And then in the Rivals comics, we do see designs that are allusions to older incarnations, but not directly older incarnations. And of course, I don't want to forget, and I almost did forget, 54 was in the Unleashed game too. Yeah, the video games were always licensed as 90s and 2000s and 54. Then the PS4 game had 94. 95, yeah, for Burning Godzilla 14 and 64. Hey, Jake! And then now also in, for example, Godzilla Battle Line, we see Godzilla Ultima and Terrestrius, 54, Heisei, Burning Godzilla, and we see Earth too. It has actually been some time since I have looked at the game, but now that we're talking about incarnations that appeared alongside other incarnations, let's actually. I do want to take a look at this. Technically, Jake, 68 did get more love because in the Rivals Hetero comic, the design is kind of based on the 68 design. Device is not connected. So Defender's phone might have disconnected there. I'm going to send him a message on Twitter to let him know that, hey, device is not connected. I think the Godzilla in the PS4 game is most likely Bio Goji / Gita Goji in 94. Yes, you're essentially right. I didn't count the comics being incarnations. It's all basically Godzilla with artists using different designs, but they don't use their specific histories or power sets. Yeah, and then in some cases, the power sets kind of just get wrapped into incarnations because we never see Godzilla fly outside of the Hetero film, but we do see him fly as the Heisei incarnation in Godzilla the Ongoing. Never usually see other Godzillas outside of the Heisei design ever use a nuclear pulse, although designs that are influenced in appearance by Heisei Godzilla are often given a nuclear pulse. Takagi, my boy. How you doing? Doing good? I also just want to thank everyone, the 5 of you, for coming in and still watching me, even though it is it is midnight where I am right now, and we've been going on for like an hour 38 minutes. Yeah, because remember, Andreas, when he's getting pelted by Hedera in the canyon, he then curls up and he kind of flies away in that one shot. I know my ongoing comic is kind of buried right now. I would actually bring it up. Actually, in the meantime, I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to go look for that. I was muted. Thank you very much, Takaiju. You are the best. So yes, it is in the shot right here. You do see Godzilla falling into a canyon, and then from there, he uses his breath to then escape the canyon and fly out. Am I still muted, guys? It does not say I'm no longer muted. I apologize, although that might just be simply because I have it just might be stream lag too, very much. Probably just dealing with something. We'll connect back later. Okay, so he's just dealing with something. He will connect back later. So he's probably just gonna be using the same device. But yeah, that is the one shot we did see of Godzilla flying and Godzilla the ongoing. Thank you very much, Jake, for that. And I just need Defender. He can just send me a chat whenever he is good. I will just bring him back onto the stream just to be sure. Since finally my battle line updated, I can look at all of the Godzillas. So in terms of Godzillas, you have Godzilla 89. That was obviously the first Godzilla that was in the game. And then, of course, the moment I decide I want to make sure and look at its profile, the game starts lagging for me. Beautiful. And now there are two defenders in my thing. There's that one there, and then there's that one there.
Sorry, Zib. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear you good. I just need I'm going to remove one at a time and see which one I removed. Which one is the actual you. Say something.
Can you hear me?
Okay, good. Is the other one just the one that was your phone? I assume.
I don't know because you said I got disconnected, but
Yeah, it said your device hadn't had been disconnected. So
yeah.
I'm just gonna keep the other one off the stream, and if something happens, you can revert back to that old one, if need be. But yeah, no. Essentially, while you were gone, we were just talking about 98 having just being like what if there was another Godzilla, like the Godzilla Incarnations in Battle Line. So there was the 89 design that was in Battle Line, Terrestrius and Ultima. Then we have obviously Legendary Godzilla, Burning Godzilla, 54 Godzilla, and Godzilla Earth.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is that. And then and what's interesting is that what should be noted when it comes to the game is that they are pretty big sticklers about Incarnations, because I know they also wanted to do 62 and 2000 as other designs they might have for the game. And then we also know that now with the new Destroyer, well, the full form for Destroyer coming out with its flying form, the aggregate form, and then the final form being separate from like the mini Destroyer crabs. So it's something to keep in note. I wonder if the recent restrictions revealed by the Call of Duty collaborations are also applied to other versions of Godzilla and licensed films, comics, toys, and games, etc. I am not entirely sure if that is the case. Would I be surprised? No. Or more likely, I guess, kind of. I think that might just apply to the fact that they're using the Legendary Godzilla, because the Rivals comics have been coming out around the same time as that collaboration took place. So I think that might just come down to the fact that they didn't want Call of Duty doing too much crazy stuff with Godzilla. And, to be honest, this might be a weird take, but I completely agree with Toho on this, considering the fact that, like, anytime I see most things Call of Duty related nowadays, they are almost always like a complete joke. I am happy that they were as conservative as they were with Godzilla. Compared to almost anything else. And I think that might have been something that not just Toho, but also Legendary had wanted.
How much of those regulations would you say were more towards Godzilla versus the MonsterVerse incarnation of Godzilla and the rules?
I think it might just come down to the MonsterVerse incarnation of Godzilla, because, I mean, they have, like, Godzilla coming out of nowhere in, like, the Godzilla versus Power Rangers comic. And I think he does break a few of those stipulations they had there. So I think it probably just came down to the fact they didn't want him, like, essentially doing Orange Justice on the giant map for COD. You're definitely quite right, Doom. I actually did not play the the events because I'm a Halo man first and a COD man 14th. So I had like no like big interest in trying to get it on, even though it was Godzilla related. As much as I love Godzilla. Chris Burnley, back when he worked at IDW, shared that Toho didn't want the Godzilla characters to be mutilated or killed, aside from Mothra for some reason, and no crossovers in 2015. Yeah, I think it's just because Mothra's just been known to die at this point. If they said no, people would just be like, really? We can't kill off Mothra? And it's probably also because of the fact that you can also always bring her back with larva and stuff. And probably most likely maybe just to leave things open for sequels and the like. But yeah, that comes back to what Defender said, where it comes to do you want is it house rules or is it more like a you cannot actually do this? I am a Doom man first and a Halo second. Well, if we're including other games, I am a Quake man third and a Halo man 10th, and then a COD man 14th, because Halo's taking that wonderful nosedive. Godzilla X Master Cheeks win. Yeah, I know what you mean. But is there any other questions or ideas you wanted to posit in the stream, Defender?
I guess one thing I want to ask as a question was maybe something we discussed earlier, but like, is there a difference between the trademark of Godzilla and like designs?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there a difference between that, or?
I would say in most cases, no. And I would say, again, it ends up being the 98 is that one exception to where you because it exists on another trademark, it's that weird one out. And then also, if we're talking about the legal precedents, especially when it comes to things like Reptar, for example, because Toho has gone after things like that, to where if a character is close enough, they may kind of bring their ire down on you and expect to kind of capitulate. Because like ultimately the legendary might be exception. Legendary might be the exception because ultimately, unlike the 98 document that I have, I'm not exactly sure who owns that trademark or whether or not the design, like the 98 design, reverts back to Toho if the licensing ends. I presume there's no difference since IDW has a license to use Godzilla, apparently has been free to use multiple designs from the beginning. Yeah, exactly. And also, since with IDW they used Zilla for Rulers of Earth, Oblivion, it would it'd be very unlikely that, for example, in IDW's case, that they'd have a Godzilla comic with 98 as the Godzilla, and then also be the company that kind of brought back Zilla. To answer to Kaiju, I remember Chris Melly said they weren't allowed to use any characters and designs in the Legendary films as they have the rights to all of that. Oh, interesting. So in that case, actually, real quick, Defender, you're gonna have to hold down the fort. I'm gonna meet something, and I just want to check something real quick.
Maybe I should ask a question for the chat or something. Ay. I guess round robin. Who's everyone's favorite Godzilla incarnation?
Interestingly enough, I think this might come down to the fact that legendary. I think probably the reason why they didn't want to use they weren't allowed to use any of the legendary designs is that IDW doesn't make the Legendary Monsterverse comics. They Legendary Comics does, and I think that's probably just a comic team or company that works in Legendary itself. Yep, Legendary Comics is an American comic book publisher founded in 2020. The company is owned by Legendary Entertainment. So, yeah, it's probably because since they have the deal with Legendary, Legendary has its own comic wing. They're then able to make their own comics with that design in that universe. Yeah, that is most likely the case where, because it's, I would say most likely, I wouldn't be surprised if the deal between Legendary and Toho was a little different than the 98 one, where because of the success of Legendary, that therefore they had more flexing power either directly in the original contract or in just because of like things were done. But yeah, no, that is interesting.
Oh, Zim. There's
Yes.
something I want to talk to you about that kind of refers back to the last stream we did with the designs.
Yes.
Okay, so something that was commonly said between us was when we looked at like fan designs and stuff was it would be cool if it was its own creature.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask I honestly don't really know how to ask it, but like
Yeah, try. I'm interested.
How much can we criticize a redesign for being a redesign?
I would say in that case, it would probably come down to the fact that, like, are you redesigning it because you want to like move away from what you know Godzilla is, and just try to have as much of like be as far but as close as you want, because like essentially you'd have to like, I would say like the most accurate way would be like you keep on putting designs that are so far removed and then see which design I'm like, yeah, that's closer, and sort of put that on a map and then just see like essentially make it a litmus test to see like where Godzilla stops becoming Godzilla by like my standard, your standard, and from there we can see like where that edge kind of falls off. Because like, of course, like the designs are so different, but because the intent is, oh, it is technically still Godzilla, so we need to add, like, I'd say like the one things we always saw that were pretty similar was somewhat reptilian like shape and then spines. And I would say in most cases I don't think having spines and then a somewhat reptilian shape a Godzilla does make. But because like I think there's a lot of cases where you could make a creature that could have more closer aspects to a classic Godzilla without being a classic Godzilla, which again that comes down to the fact where you then see I would say the most easiest way is like whether or not Toho tries Sunya over it, because if Toho tries Sunya over it, then it means you definitely strayed too far. But if they leave you alone and then you're able to make profit off of the project, then you're definitely far enough away where Toho does not see your design as a Godzilla design or infringing on their trademark.
Okay. And so like if someone had made the 98 and we compared it to the others, how close would you say it is to the Godzilla archetype we talk about?
It's interesting because in a lot of cases I would say the best description is like the lesser of two evils for me, where it's like you get Fat Frog Godzilla or you get 98. I guess probably just because I'm more familiar with 98, I'd be like, all right, I guess I'll take 98. But then like if you then say, oh well, this Godzilla's immune to conventional weaponry, and then the story does this, and that, which then kind of puts it on a more even playing field with 98 overall, then I'd be like, the design is out there, but conceptually in a story aspect is more archetypal and then fits the character more. And then it's in that case where it's like, if it just comes down to design, then I'm probably in most cases I'll do 98. Like, there are some designs that we saw that I'd much rather prefer over 98, and then there's other designs where I'm like, yeah, I would rather just take 98, like the Parasite Godzilla that we saw, or the Godzilla that looked like a Grim, like an armless Grim. I'd rather take that. I'd rather take 98 over that. But yeah, no, that's an interesting topic. That'd be very much a case by case basis. That I would love to, if I had the time, and it's always time and money. If I had the time, or like, I would love to. It would be fun to fund it, but I don't know. There wouldn't be enough money to actually fund this properly. Just to be like, hey, where do these designs kind of fall off for you, and then just do like a big research on it. So sort of like where designs fall off for a viewer. Like, it would just be something interesting, because I think it would help people and designers sort of see like where they may kind of just go off the deep end with their concepts, and where they can still kind of grasp an audience that they're trying to pull in without like being too derivative.
Yeah. And then I don't know how much time you have, but like something that I wanted to talk to you about was my Emmerich versus redesigns that I did. I think you saw some of them.
I've seen a couple of them. If in the meantime, if you want to handle chat for a little bit, we can if you want to handle chat for a little bit, I can go try pulling them up if you want, or I can handle the stream and you can just link me them in DMs, and then I can bring them up and look at it this way.
Yeah, all right. I think
yeah, so just go on to Twitter, find the designs, then just copy link and then send it into DM. I'm gonna stop sharing that screen because I don't need it anymore. And because Takaiju asked, if you gentlemen feel like you are interested in joining the stream, I know Takaiju is. Here's a link to the stream. You can join that, and we'll see who we can get in. And if we kind of get too many people, I'll just kind of close it off. Right, maybe two more people, I'd say.
Let me just pop off for a sec. I'll disconnect.
Yeah, pop off for a little sec. And now it's just me. And for anyone who knows that reference, you all know what I am talking about. And in the meantime, I noticed that for some reason Power Rangers Time Force is trending on Twitter, because right now I'm just waiting for the responses to come on. Like, come on, people, it's over. I think when it comes to the hate, I don't hate the film. Never really hated the film. It's just a matter where I'm just not fond of it, and I feel that they're just better if there's creative and better ways to work around that character, in my opinion. But I don't hate the film, if that is your question, or if you think that is an issue. So we got to the Takaiju on the stage.
What's up?
And we also got Zach. No, J.
What up?
So at the moment, we just wait for the Defender to get back on the stream. We will look at his Emmyverse designs, and if there ain't too much else, I think we probably might call it a night. But we shall see. How's it going for both you two gentlemen? We'll start off with Takaiju first.
It's going pretty good. Just chilling. And if I knew the stream was tonight, I would have probably come on earlier.
Yeah, no, I knew your what's it called? I always know your schedule's always a bit wonky. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, oh, it's on. Maybe I can join.
Yeah, so like I made sure to have a post on both Insta and then Brendan's server and then
No, I just missed that.
Snap,
then.
and I was
Sorry.
like, oh, if he's able to come on, there should be a link at least on one of those, so he'll probably be able to join. Or if he comes on, he can just ask.
Cool.
And then I also saw that you posted the Ride Godzilla statue you got.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, I got that earlier in July.
Okay, I'm gonna go steal that. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
Oh, it's gone. I guess
yeah.
you just walked in.
Finagle, finagle.
Damn.
I'm coming for your figure raggles.
No, I really love that thing. It's really cool. I kind of appreciate the design even more now. Just looking at like the detail up close. I know a lot of people will say it's very like, I don't know, like legendary looking, and I agree to some like extent, but like looking at it closer, I feel like the scales are more like original than it might first seem at a glance.
I think
just
probably the one
very
thing that,
warty.
like, a lot of people think to themselves when they see it, for me, in my opinion, is I think like they'll see the face and immediately they think legendary in that case.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that, but I actually, when I think of the face, I think more Showa. Surprisingly, it's those eyes. I don't know why the eyes. Just,
yeah,
even though they're small, they just have that like Showa look. At least
beady Showa look.
At least for me, but.
And Andre says, I could have sworn I sent you a Godzilla ride figure, unless I am thinking of other friends who asked me to get those toys. I must have bought 5 of them. It was not me you sent it to. I bought mine off eBay. I had asked you before G-Fest, because like obviously we weren't sure if G-Fest was going to happen, if you could get me a Terrestrius, which ended up obviously we weren't able to grab one of those. I think you said you didn't find one at the local store you were at, and then at that point we knew GFS was going to be on, so I was just like, oh, I can just grab one at GFS for a pretty reasonable price, which I ended up doing. So
wait, you do you mean the Bandai or like
the Bandai? Yeah.
Oh, the Bandai, yeah.
Yeah.
The Bandai's good.
I know that Ultima is getting a one of those new ones, so like the sort of mass market figures that's going to be coming to America. So I am definitely going to be enjoying
America.
America. I mean, I could say America. America.
Waka.
But real quick, Defender has returned to the stream.
Hey.
And in your case, Defender, what you'll need to do is, did you just send me a link via DMs, or
I sent it to you on Twitter. Did you get
okay.
those?
Yes, I did. I just need to new tab and new tab. I'm gonna X out of these tab right here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we have Rodan, and then we have Mothra. Which one do we want to do first, gentlemen? We'll start out with a vote for Acno, and then Takaiju, and then I'll be the breaker on it. So Acno, which one would you want to look at first?
Mothra.
Okay, Takaiju.
Radon.
Choose, damn it. What was that?
Radon.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, in this case, I'm gonna go Burb on this one. We'll do Le Radon first.
Man.
I'm sorry, Acno. I betrayed you.
She'll be next.
Oh, she will be. Exactly. And ironically enough, I still had the Mothra tab up, so we would have seen that design first anyway. But nope, I got it now. So this is the Emmerich verse Rodan design. So obviously, since this is your design Defender, just want to run through the design process with us, just so we can kind of what you're thinking with it, because I just got to help us all kind of with our concepts.
All right. So when it comes to my process for specifically Emmerich-verse, as I like to call it, for these designs, I follow the I don't know, more so guideline, but style of like mutated animals. And so for this one, it's like a mutated shoebill.
Looks more like a vulture.
I was like, if
I could see the shoe.
I could see the shoebill, but also I agree with Acno where my first thought when I see that is either vulture or condor, and condors are very similar to vultures.
Yeah, that's intentional with the same philosophy of like chimeric aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
And
like
then
sorry.
what's it called? Oh no, sorry, that's me. I'm always a huge person who interrupts people. My biggest flaw. But you want to kind of give us a rundown of like the color choices too. So I know shoe bills aren't usually colored like that.
Yeah. Well, shoe bills are like gray, so I went with like a warm gray as a base.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the sake of like the recognizability, I went with like a burgundy color for like accents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my like color choice that I went with.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting. Obviously, since I don't want to be the a-hole who keeps on interrupting everyone, so we'll start with Takaiju first, Acno second. Of course, we must be constructive. So what's your thoughts first, Takaiju?
I can really see the shoe bill influence in the beak. I will say the body is a lot more, I guess, vulture like. I would say. I think a shoe bill, like as a reference for like designing a Rodan would actually be pretty interesting. They've got like a very like gnarly looking face, and they're very prehistoric looking. I think it's a neat idea to make the crest of Rodan like the feathers that like the shoe bills kind of have sticking out of their head. I'm looking at one right now. I think that's actually pretty creative.
And just to clarify, there are two feather I guess feather crests. I was inspired by horned owls and how their feathers come up.
Yeah, like horns. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I don't really like. I think the bird aspects is, I don't know, like the original Rodan is like was a pteranodon, I guess. I don't think the bird aspect is really that bad, but what like is it more? Would you say they're feathery, or would they be like kind of like a mixed a combination of like feathers and scales, like I guess King of the Monsters concept art?
Something that I wanted to reference was well, when it comes to the feathers and how the feathers work, it's much like the Quetzalcoatl design from the series, where they explain it as like more scale-like feathers.
Mm.
Oh, now looking at it, does kind of look like the Quetzalcoatl.
I think that's kind of cool. I mean, I always saw the Quetzalcoatl as like kind of like a bootleg Rodan design.
Yeah, that was always like my thing. I thought like essentially he was Rodan.
So I feel like if that design was like altered, I feel like it could really work as a cool Rodan design, to be honest. So if that's sort of what you're going for with just different elements, then I think it could work. I think the color scheme is I think the brownish gray color. I don't know. I feel like that could be a bit more colorful instead of so drab. But that's about it. I like the red a bit more than just the brownish color. But that's
I think it's a beige. That's color
beige.
The one thing I'm thinking about was that the reason I didn't think at first was a shoe bill was usually with shoe bills is that like the top crest is usually pretty long, but then if you see the curve, it very much has a more predatory aspect to it. Whereas with the shoe bells, that hook is a lot small. Actually, well, let me bring a shoe bell for comparison. Just to talk about what I mean rather than just
I don't even know what a Shibo is, to be
It's this
honest.
crazy bird.
Yeah, these things.
Oh, that looks nothing like the Vodan design.
Because for me, like with this, actually, this is a even better shot because when I look here at this, the hook is not as defined in like when I'm looking at it. Just when I think shoe bell, although I think that if like a Rodan was staring like this, it would be pretty interesting. But let me just grab a vulture or a condor, for example, because condor, like especially, let me bring that over. Although obviously this is more covered in skin, the curve of the beak is a lot more kind of apparent down here. Or is that condor? Let's eagle. Or just a wrap, and I just spelled eagle wrong. What happens when you put your iPad also in front of your screen? Yeah, actually, that's probably even better right here. Is that although it does have that curve, it does seem to have a more
That's a
rapid,
falcon and an eagle.
Really? It says eagle photos. It's a falcon. Everything lies to me. Oh, of course, this is a bald eagle, unless someone's gonna tell me that's like a white-tipped peregrine or something. But there's some author design. But I'd say like it is interesting that you chose shoe bell, but I do like I'd say definitely the feather horns are very clever. And Acno, your thoughts on it?
It kind of looks like a mix of a vulture and a condor, to be honest. Actually, now looking at it, kind of looks like the freaking. Remember that statue of Rodan that we got way before we actually got the official design for Rodan in 2019?
Let me try looking for that.
I remember that. I feel like that design looked pretty much the same as the final design. Just
it was pretty similar. I remember.
No, not really.
Talking about. Let's
see.
Mean, no,
also, the
are
shot is in perspective.
Statues. Wait, it's like, no, it was this one. It was this one, yeah.
That one, yeah, that's what it pretty much looks like to me.
I was also inspired by that maquette design because I really liked it.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, like if you're gonna look at Rodan influences, might as well just pick from the best. So yeah. Rodan's a pretty good design. Real quick, I'm just gonna stop sharing because since we're bringing up designs, Takagi, do you have a Mothra or a Rodan you've been working on that you'd like to show?
No,
or
I don't have anything right now. Sorry.
Okay.
I haven't.
Because I might just do this as a segment where I might do a prompt for people just to redesign something, and then we kind of talk about that. But
I have I have an older design.
If you want to show an older design, you can send that to me via Discord.
There's the Mothra larva. That's all I really have of like I would try making it in the style of
the GTS. You can do the GTS Mothra, the GTS. Yeah. No, let's definitely do that.
Probably the one and only Godzilla series design I will do. Sorry. It was just a spur in the moment. Here, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, no, that's I would definitely say that's a good idea. Let me Doom says was an interesting design. Let me share my Rodan design as well, and just send me what you do have.
Oh wait, I think I'm not even sure if I still got that Rodan design. It's probably in the notebooks.
This is my Rodan design.
Rodan.
So essentially, I was looking at this. The things I wanted to do is obviously I wanted to have them be a little bit more anachronistic and pterosaur-y. So brought back the crest, no feathers at all, and I want to make sure that because he's a little bit more of a brawler, and I wanted him to be similar in size to Godzilla. I wanted to have the beak be very broad, so very good for pecking, even biting, and then having a little extra detail on the under the eyes just gave him a very weathered look. You know, although like Rodan generally never has like a fire breath or a heat beam or anything, the idea of giving him like a throat pouch, if in like a future like project he were to possibly do it, I thought that would be interesting to have. And then obviously the Rodan belly, and then the thing with I want to do something where instead of giving him actual hands and like full on hands, that he had just more wyverny looking wings with only just a single claw, but then very distinct
This is
feet here with his little tail.
yeah.
Let me go back to StreamYard for your thoughts. We'll start with Defender first, since obviously Defender showed off his design, so we'll have him start on this.
With this design?
Yes.
All right. I really like how you sort of, I don't know if this is intentional, but it reminds me of like the old, I don't know if they were concept art, but like concepts of Rodan for Monsterverse with the crest.
It was fan art. It was fan art, but that it reminded me of that.
Yeah, I really like
that was definitely an influence.
It sort of reminds me of something that maybe like a primal design for a Rodan, and I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Which I have been, speaking of primal, I have been thinking about either I'm doing I'm going to do primal content either on this channel, or I'm going to be doing a separate channel dedicated for the primal content.
I need to finish. I need to
I've been thinking of that too.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of interesting connections that I'm seeing a lot of people talking about primal not bringing up, especially because like not a lot of people read Sword and Sorcery.
Is episode 4 out? Or
no, episode 4 is tomorrow.
Oh, sick. Okay.
I need to watch episode 3.
Yeah, it's tomorrow at midnight.
I'll watch episode 3 and 4 tomorrow when I come home from work or something.
Same.
But yeah, no, if there's one thing I have to say, not for everyone to go off on a primal, like not for people to be like, oh, you're doing primal now. I'm very curious to see more of this land, because specifically, like, it is very interesting because is anyone like yes or no? Has anyone read anything like any Conan the Barbarian stuff?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. But yeah. So if you look,
I didn't care if he's
for example, a lot of the people groups in Primal, they are very much influenced by like real world people groups, but also they seem to like line up very well with like the races that appear in the Hyborian Age that Conan appears in. So like the Viking Raiders are like very much a analog to the Sumerians that Conan is a part of, especially because of the fact that they ride bears, and one of the gods of Sumeria is literally a giant bear. Mira, speaking in Arabic, is like very close to either Stygia or like Shemite people. And then we see that the people group that help Spear in the village are very similar to the Picts, but less violent. And the Picts are literally just based on like old Irish and Gaelic peoples. And the leader quite literally just speaks Old Gaelic, while Mira speaks Arabic, which is interesting. So like there's a lot of like old Sword and Sorcery references that have just got me super excited for the series, outside of the fact that like it is fairly original, especially for the time period like nowadays. But tangent aside, Defender, you can continue on if you have any criticism or anything else to say. I'm sorry.
Nothing in the way of criticism, no.
Really nothing? Damn, wow.
I have a
shoot.
So this is more like a pterosaur based design, right?
It's more Vintage pterosaur base.
Oh, vintage. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Never mind.
very
That
like
explains the
anachronistic.
bat wings then.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
So,
that
like-
wasn't intentional. So I don't really have.
Yeah,
I
so
guess-
like you can't really see them now, but originally, at certain pictures I took of it, you could see it where there was a lot of erasing towards the bottom because originally I was going to have him walk more like an Asdarkid, but the issue was that when I did the
You
picture.
did a pretty good job of erasing.
Yeah, thank you. I originally, like, because of how it was, how the legs, like the arms and the legs would have been placed, you wouldn't have been able to see how the legs looked. So I wanted to have them raised like that. And it ended up just being like, all right, I'll just use more anachronistic like wings rather than like Asdarkid wings.
Rodan's posture is very tricky to like figure out.
Especially because like the only time we ever see him have like he's had two distinct postures in the in Toho. It's either been like just standing and really technically like just the flying posture for Heisei, because outside of that he doesn't do much else really. Outside
I'd
of that
also say
posture,
for
like
MonsterVerse Rodan, we don't even really see like one thing that's really been on my mind lately is like how does MonsterVerse Rodan, like if he were to just walk and not like fly, because we see him crawl up the volcano, yeah, we know that, but does he like if he were to just like walk around, would he like hop around like a bird, or would
I like from how
crawl?
his legs are placed, I assumed he'd probably like crawl like similar to the Ornithochirus you see in Walking with Dinosaurs, where it's sort of like when one foot moves, the other, like the back leg on the other side kind of moves like that.
It's I almost just want to see Rodan in the whatever MonsterVerse sequel it is, just to see like how he moves, because I never thought
You
about
probably
that,
won't
and
ever see him.
I can't figure it out just because it's like, damn, like like how does he, because his like body is very bird-like, but then he crawls out of the volcano. It's just weird.
Yeah, but also with how his wings are postured,
Like,
and
how
then
could
the
he
fact that
fold?
like because of how they fold too, it might be a thing where it could very well be that like he's able to just sort of keep his wings up like this design and then just try to walk over, because like the wings don't attach to his legs, they attach to the tail.
Yeah, it's odd. It's very odd, and that's the part where like maybe.
Or I wouldn't be surprised also if he did something like a Rathalos or Rathian kind of style in walking, where they fold up their wings and he kind of like bends himself up like that. That's possible.
That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, anyways.
Anything else on your end, my man?
I personally don't like the tri-crest look, but that's just a nitpick. That's just my personal preference. So I don't really have anything else.
Yeah, no, I was definitely debating whether or not I wanted to do dual or tri, and I just think just tri adds more to it in my personal opinion. I've always just liked it, like the tri-crest.
Yeah, that's fair. I used to like it a lot too, but
maybe just because I've always like I don't know, maybe I really like the original Rodan, but then like Heisei Rodan, that despite like the many problems with how that prop was done, I always liked its head.
Yeah.
But Acno, any thoughts, praises, criticisms?
It kind of, not to be awkward or anything, it kind of reminds me of the freaking, remember that the guy we did not mention from Godzilla Bros? It kind of looks like that design a little bit.
I mean, that dude does do good art, regardless of him as a person. I definitely have been influenced by a lot of his work, so that goes without saying.
Did that design have crest, or was it just?
I'm gonna look it up right now
because
I think it has 3 quests. I think just one's hiding on the other side. No,
it has 2.
Really?
It doesn't. It doesn't. It didn't really remind me of that design.
Let me stop sharing and let me. He actually has a couple, but And we'll bring it up from there. Share. And there we go. Because he has this design here, which is just 2 crests. This is a different shot of his head. And then he did a Showa design here.
That design, yeah. That's what it looks like.
Honestly, I would say the only thing I was never even thinking of this design because I'd only been thinking of like this one, but I actually no. Actually, I do keep the same amount of claw digits from this one because I mean I can definitely see the resemblance there. I'm not denying that.
That bottom one, that's kind of like its posture is like a pteranodon kind of.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another one that was by. I was trying to get the wings to kind of look like this, but they always looked a little too thin to me. So I ended up scrapping that, and I didn't really like the feet on this or like those things on the back. But this head was also a big influence.
That head's pretty cool.
It is a very good head. But on to the Musra design. Although this one is not in color. And
Yeah, I haven't done a color version of this one.
There we go. Explain away, good man.
All right, so when it comes to this, influences were like regular moth stuff, and then one thing I went back to was like the Monsterverse design idea of more insect-like chimera aspects with like the body and the mantis claws. And another influence was the concept art for Mothra 62.
Mm.
There was a Mothra 62.
Oh, wait, is it 62? Which one is it? The first one?
What's 61?
61.
61. There
So,
you
well,
go.
yeah, first
1
is
year
61,
off.
Godzilla versus Mothra is 64.
Oh. Okay.
But yeah, concept art for the original Mothra influenced it.
The concept
I
art
actually
is pretty
really like
crazy.
the concept art, especially for the larva. I, in a lot of ways, would have preferred that design to the design we actually ended up getting.
Yeah, it's pretty. I was like, wow, that's insane. I saw it recently and I was like, damn.
And then, well, honestly, the Imago design, which is I can very much tell is influencing this design. I would love to see that as its own moth adjacent monster in Godzilla, just not as a Mothra design. I just dropped the mic there. That was the take was just too spicy.
I personally, I guess, like the Monsterverse influence just because I like the Monsterverse design. I personally like how they take different insects to create something, I guess, more monstrous. And I really like the wings in your design because I've been wanting a Mothra design with like tails on the ends of the wings because I just think it looks dope. And the grub is cute, I guess.
I'd say definitely. I like the tails, and I also think that this is probably. I'll say it. I like this design more than the Monsterverse design. If this was the Monsterverse design, I probably would have actually been more happy with it.
And that's actually one thing I would have changed about the Monsterverse design. I think. I think the wings are just a little too thin.
The wings are very.
It makes it look very tarantula hawk looking.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, looking at the Mothra wings from the Monsterverse, they kind of look more Muto-like than actually Mothra-like.
Yeah, no, they just I would say with the Muto designs, they're more like if we're breaking them down by shapes, they just look like for the Mutos, they're very big triangles. Where the big side is on the inside, like facing the body. While with the Mothra design, it feels like the triangle is then inverted, where the thinner side is facing the body.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think thicker wings would have helped that design because I just thought I remember when I saw the monster, it's like prototypes. I was like, oh, she looks like a wasp.
But I think wasp was an influence.
Yeah, so. Which I don't think is bad. I just think that the bigger wings would have helped to like at least make it look more moth-like. Just because I think for what they were going for, like a more fierce looking Mothra, I think that works because it makes her look more sharp. But then the wings, I just think they went a little too thin, and it looks because I don't think there's any real like moth that really. I mean, there's probably some, but moth that has like wings that thin. They're always usually like fuller, and I think
Yeah.
and if they're also going for like a defense display like with Godzilla's eyes on her wings, you'd think they would be bigger to be more threatening. But
One moth that does have thin wings is like I think it's a plum moth. Let me. And it does not. Okay. Plum moth, like that. Even that's like
Doesn't
that.
that's too thin for even for the Mothra design.
No, even with that, that's like pretty close. However, with the Mothra design, it sort of circles out, so they're more like teardrops rather than this.
And that doesn't even look like a freaking moth.
It looks like a mosquito with like a
Yeah.
stick on it.
I see these things all
Yeah.
the time.
Now you know. Do 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 do.
Wow, I can't believe this I'm off.
Yeah, no, exactly.
They're annoying.
I also prefer the
But-
on this design.
Wait,
Two
don't those
is
scenes
this
eat
design.
mosquitoes?
What was that?
No, that's
But these-
there's
Yeah.
no that those are what are they called? Crane flies, but they don't actually eat mosquitoes. It's a myth.
Oh.
Yeah,
The
they
myth
just
has
do
been
nothing and be
busted.
annoying.
Okay.
I always thought crane flies were mosquitoes because they look
Same.
essentially the same.
They can't bite either, so I don't think they have mouths.
But they probably have mouths, but just not enough to like bite you.
Mm.
But Acno, any thoughts on this design? Any thoughts?
I really like it. I like
They
think
don't have
the-
mouths. Sorry.
I think the wings. I like the wings the most. Mostly the body kind of looks like the Monsterverse design a little bit, not including the legs. But it looks the wings kind of make it look more intimidating and more like a moth than the actual Monsterverse design we got. But overall, I like it.
Yeah, no, and I will unironically say I prefer this design to the Monsterverse design, and no one can tell me otherwise. And had you, you said something to Kaiju?
Oh, I just said that it was a tangent. The crane flies as adults they don't have mouth parts.
Oh,
They
really?
don't?
So
Really?
weird.
Yeah,
Why?
some moths don't either. Like they just lose that ability because
They don't even have like a sippy straw thingy.
no, they just
So how they eat? So
they
how?
eat as like larvae.
It's crazy.
Then how they eat as moths? Like
Do
how?
they just like
Die
live
in like a week.
That's so weird,
They just mate and die.
bro. I literally
Wow.
became an adult just to spread my seed and die.
The what moth is it? The Atlas moth. That's like one of the biggest moths in the world, and they live for like I think a week or a couple days, and then they just die, and they're really beautiful. It's sad.
What a way to live.
Damn. Yeah.
Again, I was put on this earth for one purpose, and that was just to make love and die.
Literally.
But so let's me remove this, and then let's me move over to my Mothra larva design first, and then I will switch over to the actual design. Share. So picture is kind of blurry. I'm not sure why, but this was the original design I did for the larva. I just wanted to stay as kind of close to the larva as I would like with some Monsterverse elements. So specifically the rearing. Did like the blue eyes, the mouthpieces I like, but I also wanted to add some antenna.
Mm.
Keep the spiny bits. Well, he still looks like a little turd roll. And then going over, this was the Mothra.
Oh, I love the design. Oh my god.
For some, like every time I saw Mothra's powder as a kid, immediately I would think of snow. So I thought of like a more wintry-esque Mothra to like
We need to
instead of
get-
like using warm colors, I just wanted to do a lot of cold colors. So
Wow.
keeping the eyes blue, but then like having this whole still kind of focus being of blues and light silvers, grays, and then the really darkest color being that black.
That lighter tone and color is actually kind of similar to like how I would design Mothra if she was in like say Godzilla the series actually.
Oh, really?
Because you in the series a lot of the there's some kaiju that are just or mutants that are very I don't know they have like this kind of dull color.
Mhm.
I guess to be more grotesque or
Yeah, just it
or
gives them a
realistic.
more grounded feel to them, more earthy quality.
Yeah, and I always thought like, oh, it'd be interesting if I ever did a design for Mothra and for the series, like in an imago form, I'd make it more of like a not so colorful moth because that's just kind of the vibe they seem to go for. But I like this the snow like look of it. I think it's
Mhm.
really cool and mysterious. I guess.
Yeah, definitely mysterious. I could definitely see like this. An idea I had for this Mothra was definitely like him kind of or her sort of like crawling up onto like a large like snow bank or like a snow dune and like a blizzard, and you just
Yeah,
see
like-
like light bits just sort of kind of illuminating off and then flying up into the sky and just catching snow in a drift.
The first thing I kind of thought of was like the scene in Tokyo SOS where Mothra's on like the
Yeah,
the hill.
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
but imagine her just in complete like Snow White, like or
Wasn't that lights,
cool.
not snow? Wasn't that?
No,
Like,
no, it was snow.
Oh, for some reason I thought that was Mothra's lights, or I don't know.
You know, Defender. Any thoughts on your end
For the larva,
for the larva and then the imago stage too?
for the larva, one thing I would say is I do kind of wish it was. I don't know if it's just me and what I like, but maybe something a little more monstrous, I
Yeah.
guess. And then for
Oh,
the imago, I like it overall, but I don't know if it's just the piece, but like bigger wings.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say that too. I think the wing should be just like
A
like
smidgen bigger, yeah.
or actually maybe bigger, just bigger in general. I think they just look a bit small, but
Or you could just make the body a little bit small and make the
Yeah,
that.
no, definitely when I finished it up, the proportions were definitely something I was like,
I just think it's the wings. Otherwise, other than that, I think it looks
Mm-hmm.
like fine.
Yeah, no. I was also thinking maybe the back end I would maybe have made that a little smaller, but definitely the wings.
I can imagine like the wing pattern also being kind of like a tiger butterfly, but like instead of yellow, like it being white. I think that would look really cool. It's kind of reminds me of like a snow leopard, even though they have spots, but just
Mhm.
or like a white tiger. It just has a really cool like look to it. And for the larva, I kind of agree. I think it should look a bit more monstrous, but I do like the silkworm influences that I can
Mhm.
see.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really it.
Yeah. Me stop sharing that. Did you? Oh, you did send me that. Okay, good. And let's me get to Kaiju's Mothra larva. There we go.
Oh,
And
I
obviously,
remember
since it's
this.
98 influence, we will let Defender go first.
Oh, this is I should
And
provide
of course,
context.
yeah, context too.
This is me trying to, I guess, design a Mothra larva in the style, trying to get as close as possible in the style of Godzilla the series. Yeah.
Was it me who asked you to do that? I remember I thought I asked
Did
you.
you? I don't remember. Sorry. I get. You might
I can
have.
get onto Instagrams. It's on. It's on your art account, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. So you guys can discuss that while I go look see if
You
that
might-
is.
it was a while ago. I probably don't remember whoever.
I just
asked.
remember like you asked like I don't know, like, what do you want me to draw in what style? And then I said something in the style of, Godzilla 98 or the series.
Oh well, then I guess. Yeah. I guess maybe. Yeah. I mean, well, it was a fun little experiment. I did it like overnight because I was just like, I was like, I'm bored. So I just did it, and then a lot of people asked for more, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna do more. Maybe I'm not sure. But it was a fun like study and practice, I guess.
Mm-hmm. You don't credit someone specifically for asking you to do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if like you guys like DM'd about it or something.
Maybe. I just probably don't remember. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's no problem.
I think it was in my early Defender days too, because I remember I retweeted it.
One thing I definitely thought was like the series in line was the mouth being like really, really monstrous, and then the tail, especially like the top end, having a really like gangly, overgrown look to it. Because like immediately the mouth like was very Psycho inspired. And then just with all the mutations always having like weird, really long spines to them, that the end just very much fits that.
Yeah, I was looking at a lot of the bug monsters from that show and just looking at like different aspects that like they had to like kind of make a Frankenstein of like how this would work for Mothra. I basically just kept the overall silhouette of the Mothra larva and then looked at real animals. I looked at Silkworm for the color and pattern. Because they would always like base their mutations off of real animals, and Mothra is based off of Silkworm, so duh. And I basically just looked at like different monsters from the series that and took like there are monsters that have similar like design aspects, like insects will have like similar eyes to one another. So I would do stuff like that to try to match the design. And there were ugly like spider kaiju or mutants would have like tiny little. They wouldn't have a lot, but they'd have like hair sticking out. So I put that in like the face area and the legs, I think. And I tried to match it as best as possible. And this is what I came up with. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely very good. Also also like the color too. I would say probably if there was one thing I would change, it would be inverting the colors for the legs and then the body. So having the top be a little darker with the bottom being lighter. Well, that's just purely a preference where I like darker things on top with lighter colors, essentially working for that counter shade on the bottom.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably what I would change too. But I was purely just going with like, oh, what would the series do? And that's what I just based the color choices off of, kind of.
Yeah, no. Like, even though of course this wasn't the intent. Like, I just immediately just probably because Where Was I Sting was just that one episode that stuck with me. I immediately would love to see what this looks like with the Psycho colors on it, because that blue with the like the orange highlights on it with this design just seems like something I would love to see.
Wait, the what? The
Set go.
Yeah, the giant scorpion.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, just using his colors on this I would love to see what that looks like.
That'd be interesting. I could. Maybe I'll send you
when I get him out of retirement.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Acno, anything on your end to comment on?
It kind of looks more like the Mothra larvae from 2000.
Oh wait, no. Sorry.
No, the Mothra larvae. The last concept of what was supposed to be Batra.
Like the Gigamoth design?
The Gigamoth design, yeah. It kind of looks similar to that, but instead of having like the green and white outline, it kind of looks more like a Mothra-ish design.
Gigamoth? Is that what it's called? I don't
think
Gigamoth.
Yeah, Gigamoth.
All kind of thing they wanted to do instead of Batra.
Batra.
Yeah. I could see it because Gigamoth always had a more aggressive feel to it, and of course we know how Batra looks, so
Yeah.
it definitely.
I see it a little.
Yeah.
That's terrifying, Jesus! I've never seen that before.
You've never seen that before, really?
I think, or maybe I have. I probably
you've
just don't remember.
definitely seen that before.
I don't remember the Mothra, like this gnarly looking Mothra, the Imago version though. I don't think I've ever seen that one, but maybe the
You
larva.
probably have. I'd be honest, like I'd be super surprised if you haven't.
The Imago, I just don't remember, but
Really?
the
Wow.
moth, the larva looks kind of similar,
Mm.
or like familiar, I guess.
Yeah, no, because I always remember seeing that because of the concept art from like Toho Kingdom and stuff. So like that was always like a classic for like things I remember from back in the day. But that's actually what we've got for both designs. All three of us could share. I know, Defender, you had two other designs. You had Amanda design and then Camibus, right?
No, Angus.
Angerus. Okay.
Did you get the image?
I got the image. What I'm thinking about is that since this is what became of the stream again, I want to actually since probably I'm gonna talk to some people. I want to see if I can either get like a bunch of people to design Amanda or design an Anguirus and try to see if we can get people on because a lot of people have been asking to do another round table with a lot of people. So that might be the perfect way to jumpstart that again. And obviously, we know Kaiju has an Anguirus in the works.
Yeah,
so,
please.
So yeah, actually, we'll do the Anguirus. I will
prepare me for that because I would need to like sit down and actually like
finish
design it, finish it. Yeah,
finish it.
Because then I'll let you know when I'm actually like done with it and be like I'm ready.
Okay, yeah. No, that definitely can work. I'm gonna look at my own availability.
I've been itching to draw that.
There, we can plan it out so that one, you can get the design finished, and people who haven't have something can try to get something prepped.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you three gentlemen for coming on. Defender for staying along as you did, and then for Kaiju and Acno sort of swinging by and giving your thoughts right through, and then for the 5 people who stayed as long as you have, thank you for joining us as long as we have. We'll close out. We'll start off with Acno, and essentially we're just gonna do plugs for everyone. So Acno, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and YouTube at Nagoji. That's pretty much it.
And Kaiju, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Takaiju Art and also Twitter, same name.
And Defender, where can we find you, good sir?
You can find me on Twitter as G98 Appreciator, and I'm going to be doing some more interview type stuff with some of the people behind Godzilla 98, so I'm going to get working on that.
Are you doing interview stuff? Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then for me, you can obviously find me here at Zimzone99, Zimzone99 YT on PlayStation. Obviously, stay tuned for that because Gigabash is coming out in one day.
Oh yeah, it's coming out
Where I
tomorrow.
will be primarily, well, not tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, or midnight release or whatever. But that is where I will be primarily playing the Gigabash, and you can find me also on Xbox, Steam. My computer is not the best, so I probably won't be buying it on Steam because I'd rather not have my computer crash every 5 seconds. But you've all been awesome guests. Thank you all for coming on. Thank you, people, for watching. And it's Zilla, and I will see you guys all next time. Y'all have a good night now.